My wolf was cursed. I had 3 days left. But my mate, Alpha Edwin, and my parents were forcing me to surrender my Luna title to my adopted sister, Meggie. All because she claimed a curse was about to kill her. Your wolf will fade completely in 3 days, Hazel. I stood in the warlock's study, staring at the old man in his black robes. A dark mist, the remnants of his scrying, still swirled inside his crystal ball, clinging to the glass like death itself. Is there a way to break it? No. He shook his head, his eyes full of pity. This is an ancient, dark curse. It targets the Luna bloodline specifically, unless the caster removes it willingly, so I die. I finished for him, my voice flat. Just then my phone rang. It was my father. Hazel, get home. Now. We have a family crisis. Jaden's voice was urgent and commanding. It's about Maggie's curse. She's getting worse. I hung up and let out a bitter laugh. Of course. Even now it was all about Maggie. 20 minutes later, I pushed open the doors to the PAX council hall. Hazel, you're finally here. My mother, Lyra, rushed toward me, but her eyes slid right past me, searching the space behind. Isn't Maggie with you? She fainted again today. I don't know where she is. How could you not know? My father, Jaden, frowned. She's your sister. Sister. The word made me want to laugh. Sit down, Hazel. My father gestured to the head of the table. We need to discuss something important. I scanned the room. All. The pack elders were here, their faces etched with worry. Just like they had been 8 years ago, the first time Maggie had one of her episodes. A decision about what? I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling I knew. Maggie's condition makes handling pack affairs impossible for her. One of the elders began. But if she took on some of your duties a distraction, perhaps it might slow the curse's progression. You want me to give her my authority over the pack? It wasn't a question. It was a statement. The room fell silent. Hazel, Lyra stroked my cheek. You know how much we love you. But Maggie, she's dying, right? Just then, the soft sound of footsteps came from the doorway. Maggie entered, her face pale, looking pitifully at everyone in the room. Sorry I'm late, she leaned weakly against the doorframe, as if she might collapse at any second. Everyone shot up from their seats, rushing to her side. Only I noticed the faint, triumphant smirk that crossed her lips as she lowered her head, and the look she shot me. A challenge. A victory. It was as if she were saying, see? They will always choose me. Fine. I stood up, my voice so calm it surprised even me. I'll do it. They all stared at me in shock. Hazel. Jaden was in disbelief. Are you serious? I'll transfer all my pack duties to Maggie. I watched her surprised expression and continued, including all related authority and resources. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Hazel, we know. This is hard for you, but it's not hard. I cut her off. Family harmony is what matters most, right? Jaden grabbed my hand, his voice thick with emotion. Hazel, you've finally grown up. You have the heart of a true Luna. Grown up. The heart of a Luna. If they knew I was about to die, would they still say that? Since it's decided, we'll hold the transfer ceremony tomorrow. I stood to leave. I'm going home now. Of course, of course. Lyra beamed. Go get some rest. What a wonderful day. I walked toward the door, pausing as I passed Maggie. Congratulations, I whispered. She looked up at me, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. But I was already gone. The moon was high when I got back to the Alpha's house. The lights were on, but no one was there to greet me. I went upstairs, and as I passed my son Leo's room, I heard happy laughter from inside. Auntie Maggie, did you bring the storybook you promised me? Of course I didn't forget. As soon as Auntie is feeling better, I'll take you to buy the best storybook in the whole world. Maggie's voice was as gentle as a spring breeze. I didn't open the door. I kept walking and pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Edwin was standing on the balcony, moonlight pooling on his broad shoulders. On the table in front of him was a spread of herbs and shimmering crystals. What is all this? He turned, his body relaxing when he saw me. Hazel, you're back. This is for the purification ritual. Who is it for? But I already knew the answer. For Maggie. Edwin walked toward me, reaching out to hold me, but I stepped back. Hazel, I know today's decision was hard on you, but she's more important than me. That's not what I mean. His brow furrowed. You know I love you, but Maggie is really dying. I finished for him. And I'm just being selfish. Edwin was silent for a few seconds. Then he stepped in front of me and cupped my face in his hands. Hazel. His voice was pained but firm. The elders, they said the only way to save her is for me to temporarily sever our mate bond and perform the ritual with her. What did you say? My voice trembled. Edwin's hands were still on my face, but I felt no warmth. Only a bone-deep chill. Sever the bond? And perform a purification ritual with her? Hazel, let me explain. No. I pushed his hands away, backing up until I hit the wall. I heard you. You're going to sever our mate bond. For her. The mate bond. It was the most sacred tie in the werewolf world. Deeper than marriage, purer than blood. The eternal merging of two souls. And he wanted to break it for another woman. It's only temporary. Edwin explained desperately. Once her curse is lifted, we can reconnect. Temporary? The laugh that escaped me was hollow and sharp. Edwin, do you have any idea what you're asking? He fell silent. Of course he knew. Severing the bond wasn't a temporary fix. It was tearing a soul in two. The agony would leave me a fragile shell, and the connection would never be as deep. And I only had 2.5 days left to live. Fine. The word flew out of my mouth, surprising even me. What? Edwin's eyes widened. I said fine. I smoothed my hair, my voice steady. If the elders agree, then let's do it. Sever the bond. Hazel, he looked more stunned than I felt. Are you sure? For you this will be painful. I walked over to my vanity and started taking off my makeup. What's a little pain compared to the family's happiness, right? In the mirror, Edwin's expression was a storm of conflict. Let's do the ritual tomorrow, I said, turning to face him. The sooner the better. The next evening, all the elders gathered in the moon goddess temple. Silver flames burned on the ancient altar, filling the air with the scent of herbs. I stood on one side of the altar, Edwin on the other. The high elder raised the ceremonial silver dagger. Luna Hazel, do you consent to sever your mate bond with Alpha Edwin, of your own free will? I do. Even knowing it will cause you immense physical and spiritual harm? Even then. The high elder nodded and began chanting the ancient words. The runes on the dagger began to glow, and I felt the mate mark on my chest burn. Your hand. I held out my right hand. The dagger sliced lightly across my palm, and a drop of silver-tinged blood fell onto the altar. Instantly, a pain so sharp it felt like my soul was being ripped in two erupted in my chest. It was the severing of the invisible thread that bound me to Edwin, and my wolf screamed in agony within me. My body began to tremble uncontrollably, but I made no sound. Edwin looked even worse than I felt. He collapsed to his knees, sweat beading on his forehead. It is done, the high elder announced, putting the dagger away. The bond is severed. I tried to stand steady, but my legs felt like water. The double blow of the curse and the severed bond made it almost impossible to breathe. Darkness rushed in and I fell. When I woke up, I was in my own bed. I could hear Leo and Edwin talking in the room. Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy? Why is she sleeping so much? She's just a little tired, Leo. Edwin's voice sounded exhausted. The ritual was a heavy burden for her. But Auntie Maggie said Mommy's just making a fuss. Making a fuss. I kept my eyes closed and listened. Auntie Maggie said that truly brave people don't faint from a little pain. Leo said with childish certainty. She said Mommy is just trying to get attention. Leo, is that true, Daddy? A long silence. Then Edwin said, Go find Auntie Maggie. She's waiting for you in the guest room. The sound of footsteps faded away. I opened my eyes. Edwin was sitting in the chair by the bed, his head in his hands. You're awake. He looked up, his eyes a storm of guilt and exhaustion. How do you feel? Fine. I sat up, my voice flat. Did the ritual work? It worked, he nodded. Maggie's condition has stabilized. Good. I got out of bed and walked toward the closet. My body was still weak, but I had to stay composed. Hazel. Edwin stood up. I know this is hard for you, but I should think of the greater good. I finished for him. Just like you said yesterday. Why are you? He paused. Why are you so calm? Because I'm dying. Because I have nothing left to lose. Because I finally see everything clearly. Because you were right, I said, turning to face him. The pack comes first. I just didn't get it at first. Edwin stared at me, a flicker of unease in his eyes. I want to see the elders tomorrow, I said, walking to the door. About signing over my assets. Signing over your assets? If Maggie is taking over the family's holdings, she'll need more resources to back her up. I stopped at the door. I want to sign a blood contract to transfer my remaining personal assets to her as well. Hazel, that's not necessary. It is. I cut him off. A blood contract is witnessed by the moon goddess. It's the most binding way. And I turned back to him, a perfect smile on my face. This way, none of you will ever have to worry about me changing my mind. 3 hours later, we were all gathered in the moon goddess temple again. My parents, Edwin, a few elders, and a weak but determined-looking Maggie. A blood contract is irreversible, the High Elder told me gravely. Once signed, it is bound by the moon goddess. No one can ever alter it. I understand. This includes your pack authority and the claim to the family's sacred relics. All of it. Maggie looked shocked. Hazel, you don't have to do this. I do, I said, looking at her. Because you're my sister. A complex light flashed in her eyes. The High Elder produced a scroll of parchment and a silver quill. Then, please sign the contract. I took the quill and wrote my name on the parchment in my own blood. The crimson letters shimmered in the moonlight. Hazel, my mother Lyra, had tears in her eyes. You've really grown up. Yes, I said, putting the quill down and looking at every single person in the room. I finally understand what true sacrifice is. The High Elder was about to declare the contract sealed when I spoke again. Wait. Everyone looked at me. I smiled. And with the blood-red quill, I added a long list of assets to the contract. Shares in pack-run corporations, 3 mansions, a private jewelry collection, and investment funds worth billions. Since we're doing this, I'll transfer all my personal assets to her as well. The temple was dead silent. Everyone stared at the blood contract in shock. Hazel. Jaden was the first to find his voice, which trembled. You're really giving everything. To Maggie, I nodded. This way, she can focus on getting better without worrying about resources. Lyra covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. My daughter, you're so selfless. Selfless. There was that word again. Because I've learned the meaning of sacrifice, I said, looking at her. Haven't I? Mother. As I left the temple, the world started to spin. I felt something warm and wet in my nose. I touched it. My palm came away smeared with bright red blood. Hazel. Edwin rushed over. You're bleeding. It's nothing. Just before I could finish, more blood gushed out. It was a sign of a fading wolf. Get her to the medical wing. Jaden yelled. No. I pushed away the hands trying to help me. I'm just a little tired. Mommy. Leo ran over, but when he saw the blood on my face, he recoiled in fear. Mommy, you look scary. Even my own son was scared of me. Leo, don't be afraid. Maggie immediately swept him into her arms, her voice gentle. Mommy just isn't feeling well. Auntie Maggie will protect you. Leo clung to her, burying his face in her shoulder. At that moment, a question I had to ask surfaced in my mind. If I died? I looked at every one of them, my voice a raw whisper. Would any of you even miss me? They all stared at me, horrified. Hazel. Lyra shrieked. What are you talking about? Don't say such terrible things. Jaden's face was grim. You are the Luna. You cannot speak such curses. Curses. They thought my words were a curse. That's enough. Edwin cut me off. Hazel, you're not yourself today. Go home and rest. Not myself. No, I suppose a dying person isn't quite herself. As I turned to leave, I heard their hushed conversation. What's wrong with Hazel today? It must be a side effect of severing the bond. She's just being melodramatic. Even my last cry for help was just a pathetic ploy for sympathy. Back at the house, Maggie had already taken Leo to the guest room. I could hear their laughter drifting down. Mommy Maggie, will you tell me a story? Of course, my little love. Once upon a time, there was a brave little wolf, Mommy Maggie. I walked up the stairs and pushed open the door to the guest room. Leo was sitting in Maggie's lap, his eyes shining. When he saw me, his expression fell. Mommy, Leo, come here. I held out my hand. Mommy needs to talk to you. He hesitated, glancing at Maggie. She gave him a gentle nudge. Go on. Your mother is calling you. Leo slowly walked over to me. I knelt down. Leo, Mommy has to go on a long trip. Where are you going? A very far away place. I stroked his cheek. I might be gone for a long time. Leo's eyes lit up. Really, he chirped. So I can stay with Mommy Maggie forever? In that moment, my heart died completely. Yes, I said, standing up. You can be with her forever. Yay! Leo cheered and ran back into Maggie's arms. Mommy Maggie, did you hear? Mommy said we can be together forever. Maggie hugged him, a victorious glint in her eyes. Yes, my sweet boy. We'll be together forever. I watched them. A mother and child full of love. Only the mother wasn't me. I'll be going then, I said, turning to leave. No one tried to stop me. No one even said goodbye. At midnight, I was back in the master bedroom. Edwin still wasn't home. I sat on the edge of the bed, took out my phone, and dialed an encrypted number. Hazel. Isla's voice was filled with concern. It's so late. What's wrong? Isla. I closed my eyes. I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need to make a will. There was silence. Hazel, I've been cursed. I have less than a day. My voice was calm. I need you as my oath keeper, to help me with my final arrangements. God's Hazel, are you sure? Positive. A wave of dizziness washed over me. Isla, listen carefully. I can only say this once. Darkness surged. My body started to fall. Hazel? Hazel. As consciousness slipped away, the last thing I heard was the bedroom door creaking open. When I woke again, the sun was up. I was alone. My phone blinked faintly on the floor. I struggled to sit up and picked it up. More than a dozen missed calls from Isla. And one text. Hazel, I'm on my way. Hang on. I checked the time. I had 6 hours left. An hour later, Isla burst into the room. Hazel. She fell to her knees by my bed, her eyes swimming with tears. How are you? Still breathing. My voice was a thin thread. Barely. Isla was an oath keeper, a respected position from a neutral pack. More importantly, she was my only friend. The will you mentioned. Do you remember it? I managed to sit up and pulled a small, wrapped bundle from under my pillow. This is the last thing I have to give. Inside the cloth was a moonstone, milky white and glowing with a soft light. Is this the Luna's moonstone? Isla whispered, her voice full of awe. Hazel, this contains the very essence of your Luna power. It's yours now, I said, taking her hand, along with my final request. Isla's tears fell. Hazel, maybe there's another way. There isn't. I shook my head. Isla, listen to me. I need you to seal the news of my death and my true will inside a blood pact, to be triggered at the right time. What time is that? When they realize that the blood contract they witnessed yesterday is void. Isla's eyes widened. Void. Why? A weak smile touched my lips. Because a blood contract is only binding if given willingly and without deception. The entire premise for the transfer Maggie's curse, it was a lie. She was acting under false pretenses, Isla finished, understanding dawning on her face. You knew Maggie was behind this? I suspected it from the beginning, I said, the effort to speak exhausting me. A curse that only targets the Luna bloodline? And she just happens to get a similar one? It was too much of a coincidence. Then why did you? Because I needed everyone to see. I closed my eyes. I needed them to see that even when I gave them everything, they still chose her. That way, when the truth comes out, they'll understand what they've truly lost. Isla squeezed my hand. Hazel, you're brilliant. And you're cruel. To myself, and to them. Just then my phone buzzed. A message from Maggie. I opened it. It was a photo of Edwin. Asleep. On his bicep, where my mate Mark used to be, was a new one. Maggie's. Beneath the photo, a single line of text glowed. Couldn't have done it without you, Hazel. The last bit of warmth in my heart turned to ice. They had already completed the bonding ritual. While I was still alive. Hazel. Isla asked, seeing my expression. It's nothing, I said, deleting the photo. Just confirming a few things. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. Hazel, since you're going on your trip, you should clear your things from the Alpha's house. Maggie needs a quiet space to recover. I stared at the message and couldn't help but laugh. Isla. I handed her the phone. Look at this. Isla's face went pale. Hazel, how could they? Because in their hearts, I'm not the Luna anymore, I said, my breathing growing shallow. I died the moment I agreed to sever the bond. My wolf was fading, like sand slipping through an hourglass. Promise me, Isla. I rasped, gripping her hand with the last of my strength. When the time is right, make them see. Make them see who they threw away. Who they killed. I promise. Isla's tears fell onto my hand. Hazel, I will get justice for you. It's not about justice for me. I closed my eyes. It's about making them pay the price for their choice. My consciousness began to blur. Before the last spark of my wolf was gone, I looked at Isla. If there's a next life, I hope I find someone who will truly choose me. You will, Hazel, Isla whispered, kissing my forehead. You will. And then darkness consumed everything. In the final moment, I heard the moon goddess whisper. Rest now, my child. Your pain is over. But their reckoning is just beginning. Maggie's POV. Where's what you promised me? The man in the black robe stood in the doorway of her guest room. His voice a raspy screech. Maggie quickly shut the door. Now, she hissed. Hazel is barely in her grave, and you're already at my door? A deal is a deal, the warlock said, pulling back his hood to reveal a scarred, twisted face. You got everything you wanted. Now it's time to uphold your end. Maggie gritted her teeth. I need more time. Time, the warlock sneered. You had 8 years to set this up. Wasn't that enough? Hazel's death will raise suspicion. I need to secure my position first and then what? The warlock's eyes narrowed. You plan on breaking our pact? He raised a hand, and a crimson sigil glowed on his palm. Instantly a sharp, searing pain shot through Maggie's chest. Ah! She clutched her chest, nearly falling. Remember, little girl, the warlock said, lowering his hand. Without the harmless little curse I gave you, you never would have earned their pity. And without the lethal one I placed on Hazel, you'd never be free of your biggest obstacle. Maggie bit back the pain. What I want is simple. The pack's sacred relic, the heart of the moon goddess, the warlock continued. It's a core ingredient for a much more powerful curse. I know, Maggie glared. But the relic is sealed in the ancestral vault. The wards only respond to a pure Luna bloodline. That's your problem, not mine, the warlock said, turning to leave. I want the heart of the moon goddess in 3 days. Or else, he looked back, his eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. Or else you'll experience the same pain Hazel did. The door slammed shut. Maggie collapsed to the floor in fury. No, I have to get the relic. As soon as possible, she muttered. Once I settle my debt, no one will ever be able to threaten me again. The next morning, Maggie changed into a white dress and went downstairs, feigning a look of frail weakness. Maggie, how are you feeling? Lyra rushed to her side. Much better. Maggie forced a smile. The purification ritual really worked. That's wonderful, Jaden said. Hazel's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The mention of Hazel made the room awkward. No one knew where she had gone, but they assumed she was on her long trip. By the way, Maggie began carefully, since I'll be managing the family's affairs, shouldn't I start familiarizing myself with the important relics in the vault? Jaden nodded. Of course. You are the acting Luna now. Then let's go now, Maggie said, unable to hide her excitement. The ancestral vault was deep underground, protected by an ancient stone door. The vault's wards only recognized the Luna bloodline, Jaden said. Normally, Hazel should have been the one to bring you, but since she's not here, I'll try, Maggie said, placing her palm on the bloodline recognition sigil. The sigil began to glow a faint silver. It's working, Jaden said, surprised. The wards accept you. But in the next second, the silver light turned a blinding, angry red. It flashed like an alarm. Then a cold, ethereal voice echoed from the seal itself. The goddess witnesses all. The blood of a deceiver shall not pass. Maggie's eyes went wide. That was Hazel's voice. How could she still be thwarting her, even in death? How is this possible? Jaden was just as stunned. Why would Hazel place a restriction like that on the seal? The red light intensified, and Maggie felt the seal sear her palm. She snatched her hand back. The stone door didn't open. Instead, it seemed to seal itself even tighter. The blood of a deceiver? Jaden looked at Maggie, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. What does that mean? I don't know, Maggie said, forcing herself to stay calm. Maybe the seal is malfunctioning? But inside, she was panicking. How could Hazel have known her secret? More importantly, if she couldn't get the relic, the warlock's threat would become very real. She couldn't let that happen. Let's try another way, she said, turning to Jaden. Maybe we can ask the elders for help. Jaden frowned, not answering right away. He stared at the pulsing red light on the stone door, the suspicion in his eyes deepening. Maggie rushed to the PAX records office, only to be met with more bad news. What do you mean they can't be processed? Maggie snapped at the PAC official. The record keeper explained hesitantly. Miss, while the blood contracts have been signed, they're missing the final step, the spirit's affirmation. Spirit's affirmation? Yes. The record keeper pointed to a clause in the document. According to ancient PAC law, any transfer of assets involving the Luna title requires a final confirmation from the transferor's wolf. Maggie's heart sank. Hazel's wolf was gone. How was a dead person supposed to perform a spirit's affirmation? Is there any other way? She asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Unless the transferor appears in person to complete the verification, these contracts are just worthless pieces of paper. Worthless. Maggie clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She had spent 8 years plotting, had gone to such great lengths to make Hazel sign those contracts, and now they were telling her it was all for nothing? Where is Miss Hazel now? The record keeper asked. We can contact her to complete the ceremony as soon as possible. She's on a long trip, Maggie forced a smile. I'll try to reach her. The moment she stepped out of the office, Maggie dialed Hazel's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried to reach out to Hazel through their PAC's telepathic link. There was only dead silence. Like screaming into a void. Panic began to crawl up her spine. She found Jaden in his study, her frustration boiling over. What do you mean the stock transfers are also on hold? Jaden sat, his face grim as he listened to Maggie's frantic explanation. Yes, Maggie said, lowering her eyes to look hurt. The record keeper said Hazel needs to confirm it in person, but her phone has been off. That girl. Lyra slammed her hand on the table. To vanish at a time like this, how utterly irresponsible. Mother, please calm down, Maggie said, her voice soft. I'm sure Hazel has her reasons. What reasons? Jaden frowned. If she agreed to the transfer, she should see it through to the end. But as he said it, Jaden paused. He remembered the words from the vault. The blood of a deceiver is hereby and forever denied. Why would Hazel leave a message like that? Unless she already knew there was something wrong with Maggie. Maggie, Jaden said suddenly. Is there something between you and Hazel that we don't know about? Maggie's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? The vault seal rejected you and said some strange things, Jaden said, looking directly into her eyes. Why would Hazel set up a restriction like that? I really don't know. Maggie feigned confusion. Maybe the seal just malfunctioned? Jaden didn't speak, but his gaze turned sharp and scrutinizing. Lyra noticed the change in atmosphere. Jaden, what are you suggesting? I'm wondering, Jaden began slowly, why Hazel suddenly became so compliant. Isn't that a good thing? Maggie interjected quickly. She finally grew up, too much so. Jaden cut her off. Hazel has been proud and stubborn since she was a child. How could she change into a completely different person overnight? An eerie silence fell over the room. Maggie could feel their questioning gazes on her, and a cold sweat broke out on her back. Unless, Jaden said thoughtfully, unless she knew something we didn't. Father, you're overthinking things, Maggie forced a laugh. Hazel was probably just tired and needed a break. But Jaden was already standing and walking toward the phone. I'm going to use the pack link to call for Hazel. Now. Jaden's voice became grave. As Alpha, I have the right to know the location of every member of my pack. He closed his eyes, drawing on his Alpha power, and sent a call out through their blood connection. Hazel, answer me. Minutes passed. Nothing. Jaden's face grew pale. He pushed harder, using nearly all of his Alpha strength. Hazel, answer me. Still only silence. Like calling out to someone who no longer existed in this world. This is impossible. Jaden opened his eyes, which were filled with panic. I can't feel her presence. Lyra's face drained of color. What does that mean? Either she is very, very far away, beyond the range of the blood link, Jaden's voice trembled. Or he didn't say the last part. But everyone knew what he meant. Or Hazel was already dead. No. Impossible. Panic clawed at him. Unable to reach her. A terrified Jaden summoned the pack seer. Jaden rushed toward the seer. You're mistaken. Hazel can't be dead. She was with us just 4 days ago. The seer looked calmly at the broken father. Alpha Jaden, death does not change because you deny it. Then how did she die? Lyra asked when she came to, her voice hoarse like shattered glass. She was fine. Why would she die? Her wolf was shattered by a dark curse. The seer's words were a death sentence. It's a curse that specifically targets the Luna bloodline. Once cast, the victim's wolf completely fades within days, until nothing is left. Dark curse. Luna bloodline. Fades within days. The words stabbed into Lyra's heart like daggers. She suddenly remembered the question Hazel had asked 4 days ago. If I died, would you regret any of this? At the time, she had angrily accused Hazel of speaking ill omens. But now she knew. It wasn't a curse she was casting on them. It was a cry for help. Oh gods, Lyra covered her mouth, tears flooding from her eyes. She was asking for help. She was asking if we would regret it if she died. Jaden remembered it too. Hazel's nosebleed, her fainting spell, her sudden maturity, and willingness to give everything up. She knew she was going to die. His voice was filled with remorse. That's why she gave everything to Maggie. Because she wanted our approval before she died. Lyra sobbed, beating her own chest in anguish. And what were we doing? They were busy preparing a purification ritual for Maggie, forcing her to give up her room, accusing her of being selfish and making a fuss. In the last few days of her life, they had pushed her away completely. Edwin's POV. It was late when I got home. The house was dark. No one was waiting for me. That would have been impossible before. No matter how late I came home, Hazel would always leave a light on and have a late-night snack ready for me. But not today. Hazel. I called out. No response. I went upstairs and pushed open the door to our bedroom. The bed was just as it was yesterday, the covers neatly made, as if no one had slept in it. The things on her vanity were untouched, in the exact same spot. But the room no longer held Hazel's scent. Before, no matter where she went, this room always smelled of her perfume, a faint scent of roses. Now there was nothing, as if she had never lived here at all. I opened the closet. Her clothes were all there, not a single piece missing. Her jewelry box was there too, the gems inside sparkling. But she was gone. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the mate mark on my arm. Yesterday, I had a warlock change it to Maggie's name. At the time, I thought it was the right choice. Maggie needed me, and Hazel was just being difficult. But now, staring at this foreign mark, an emptiness I'd never known carved out my insides. It felt like a piece of my soul had been carved away. I reached for Hazel through our severed mind link. Nothing. The bond was gone, leaving only a gaping void where her presence used to be. This felt different from the emptiness of a severed bond. This felt more like the other person simply didn't exist anymore. Impossible, I told myself. Hazel is just throwing a tantrum. Yes, that was it. She was just upset. Like every other time we fought, she would disappear for a few days, and then come back once she had cooled down. She would be back soon. She would walk in with that proud look on her face, and demand to know why I hadn't come looking for her. Then I would apologize, she would forgive me, and everything would go back to normal. I lay down on the bed, clutching her pillow. A faint trace of her scent still lingered on it. Sleep wouldn't come. I could only repeat it to myself, over and over. Hazel is just upset. She'll be back soon. My mind replayed every moment from the past few days. Hazel's calmness when she agreed to give up her duties and her Luna title. Her resolve when she demanded we sever the mate bond. My accusations after she fainted. The desperate look in her eyes when she asked, "If I died, would you regret it?" And her expression that night when she came home and saw me preparing the ritual for Maggie. I thought it was jealousy. Now I knew. It was the look of a soul that had utterly given up. She knew she was dying, I murmured. She knew, but we didn't believe her. I thought back to the night we severed the bond. When she said fine, I saw the despair in her eyes, but I mistook it for fear of losing the connection. Now I understood. It was the despair of facing death. A dying person, forced to endure the agony of losing her mate bond. And I was the one who had inflicted that pain on her. I killed her. A raw, guttural sob tore from my throat. I killed her. Edwin Jaden tried to comfort me. No, I shoved his hand away. I killed her. In the last days of her life, she was being tortured by a curse, and she had to suffer the pain of me severing our bond on top of it. I remembered how Leo and I had accused her when she fainted. I remembered telling her, "Hazel, you're not yourself today," and the flicker of despair in her eyes. I remembered the final way she looked at us, calm, resolute, as if she were saying goodbye, and we thought she was just throwing a fit. Her so-called maturity in those last days, the agonizing realization hit me, wasn't maturity at all. She knew she was running out of time. She was just trying to earn our love before she was gone. But what did we give her? Indifference. Accusations. Demands that she give everything she had to someone else. We even took her mate bond away from her. Hazel, Hazel, I clutched my head, groaning in pain. I remembered everything about her. Everything she did for this family, her love for Leo, her unconditional support for me. And what did I do? I severed our bond for an outsider. I made her endure a double dose of agony in the final moments of her life. A tearing pain ripped through my chest. It was the backlash from a mate's death. Even with the bond severed, the imprint on my soul remained. Hazel's death was now shredding that soul to pieces. Aya. I threw my head back and let out a desperate, primal howl. The sound ripped through the pack house and echoed across the night sky. It was the most agonizing cry of an alpha who had lost his mate. And a confession of my own sins. Tears and blood dripped from the corner of my mouth onto the cold stone floor. Every drop of blood was for my guilt over Hazel. Every howl was a judgment against myself. 3 days later, the voice of a stranger, a woman, shattered the oppressive silence in our home. I lifted my head from the sofa and saw a silver-haired woman standing in the doorway. She wore dark green robes, and the crest of the moon goddess High Council was pinned to her chest. It was the crest of a High Pact keeper. "Who are you?" Jaden asked, coming down the stairs. His eyes were red and swollen, his voice hoarse. "I am Isla." The woman held up a silver token. "I have been sent by the High Council to administer the last will and testament of Luna Hazel." Hazel's will. The word struck me like a lightning bolt. She left a will? Lyra asked, her voice trembling. Of course. Isla's tone was cold. Any Luna with the gift of foresight prepares a will before their death. But it seems that was of little concern to any of you. The main hall, Isla continued, including the family elders, and her gaze swept toward the stairs, Miss Maggie. Half an hour later, we were all gathered in the hall. The elders sat in a circle. Jaden and Lyra sat in the main chairs. I sat to the side, holding Leo. Maggie was the last to come down, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously. Before I read the will, Isla said, standing in the center of the room, I need to confirm one thing. Miss Maggie, did you or did you not sign an asset transfer contract with Hazel before her death? Yes, Maggie nodded. But Hazel offered to do it. I didn't ask for your reasons, Isla cut her off. I am only confirming the facts. She produced a blood-red parchment scroll from her robes. This is the final will of Luna Hazel, written in her own hand 3 hours before her death. It is sealed by the power of the moon goddess, and no one can alter it. The scroll glowed with a faint silver light in her hands. Now, as the pact keeper, I will read the contents of the will. The hall fell silent. Everyone held their breath. First, Isla cleared her throat. Hazel has a few words for her family. She unrolled the parchment and began to read. My dearest family, by the time you hear these words, I will be gone. I know you will say I was selfish, that I shouldn't have given up on treatment, but what you don't know is this. There was no treatment. A muffled sob escaped Lyra. I was afflicted with an ancient, dark curse that targets the Luna bloodline. From the moment I was diagnosed, I knew I only had a few days left. Then why didn't you tell us? Jaden cried out in pain. Isla shot him a cold look and continued reading. I'm sure you're wondering why I didn't tell you the truth. The answer is simple. I tried. When I asked, if I died, would you regret it? You told me not to speak of such unlucky things. When I got a nosebleed and fainted, you said I was making a fuss. Every word was a blade, stabbing into the hearts of everyone present. So I understood that even if I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me. Because in your hearts, a single hair on Maggie's head was more precious than my life. No, that's not true. Lyra covered her face, sobbing. Since that was the case, I chose to prove my love another way. I gave everything to Maggie. I severed my mate bond with Edwin. I even pushed my own son toward her. I thought that maybe, just maybe, you would remember me fondly for it. I felt my chest tear open. Hazel, my Hazel. But now I am dead, and what needed to be said has been said. Now for the distribution of my estate. Isla turned to the next page. Regarding all asset transfer contracts signed during my lifetime, I hereby declare one important condition. Everyone stared at her, tense. Maggie's face grew even paler. All asset transfers are valid only if the beneficiary acted in good faith, without deception or coercion. Isla's voice turned severe. If the recipient is found to have engaged in any act of deception, coercion, or malicious harm, then all contracts are automatically rendered void, and all assets will be redistributed according to PAC law. What does that mean? Maggie's voice trembled. It means, Isla said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm as she lowered the scroll, that Hazel knew exactly who her murderer was. The air in the hall seemed to freeze. Everyone stared at Maggie in shock. I don't know what you're talking about, Maggie tried to argue. Is that so? Isla produced something else from her robes. Then what about this? It was a crystal, and an image was preserved inside it. Hazel was sitting on her bed, weak but lucid, speaking to the crystal. If my death is connected to someone, I ask Isla to find the truth. I suspect Maggie conspired with a warlock to place a fatal curse on me, while placing a harmless, fake curse on herself to gain sympathy. Hazel's image on the crystal spoke again. For years her illnesses were never diagnosed by true pack healers, yet they always flared up at the most convenient moments, winning her the family's attention. And every time I questioned it, I was accused of being jealous. Maggie's face was as white as a sheet. That's a fake. Hazel is framing me. Framing you. Isla sneered. Then let the facts speak for themselves. She raised a moonstone in her hand, and a brilliant silver light filled the hall. Within the light, a series of images began to appear. Maggie meeting with a black-robed man in the dead of night, the warlock casting a spell on her, a flicker of her slipping something into Hazel's food, and the cruel glint of triumph in her eyes as she watched Hazel suffer. No, this can't be happening. Maggie shrieked, trying to lunge for the crystal. It's all fake. But Jaden had already collapsed into his chair, his eyes wide with horrified disbelief. Lyra had fainted completely. All the elders stared in shock at the girl they had cherished for 8 years. She was the real monster. According to Hazel's final will and the witness of the moon goddess, Isla's voice was as cold as a final judgment as she looked at the broken Meggie. Due to fraudulent acts by the recipient, all contracts are hereby declared null and void. Meggie's POV. Are you all insane? Meggie shot up from her chair, pointing a hysterical finger at Isla. You're taking the word of a dead woman? She was probably raving before she died. What deception! I deceived no one. Everyone in the moon goddess temple just stared at her. Jaden, Lyra, Edwin, and all those damned elders. The look in their eyes terrified her. This is a betrayal of the entire pack, she shrieked. Why should Hazel's dying ramblings overturn a blood contract? Meggie. Isla's voice was as cold as a blade. Are you certain Hazel was rambling? Of course. Meggie screeched. She was jealous that I had the family's love, so she set me up. Jaden and Lyra looked at each other. Doubt was creeping into their eyes. No, I can't let them doubt me. Father, mother. Meggie ran to them, clutching Lyra's arm. You have to believe me. I'm your daughter. With Hazel gone, I'm the only daughter you have left. Lyra looked down at Meggie's hand on her arm and frowned. Meggie, let go of me. Mother. Meggie couldn't believe it. Are you going to abandon me too? I said let go, Lyra said, wrenching her arm free. Until the truth is revealed, I don't want to have contact with anyone. What truth? Is Hazel's one-sided story the truth? Meggie looked desperately at Jaden. Father, say something. Jaden didn't look at her. Instead, he spoke to Isla. Pact Keeper, if Hazel has accused her of deception, then present the evidence. Evidence? What evidence could Hazel possibly have? She was long dead. Of course there's evidence, Isla said, pulling an ancient mirror from her robes. This is the mirror of truth. It is imbued with the power of a seer, and can show anyone's true history. Meggie's heart stopped. The mirror of truth. It was one of the oldest relics of the wolf packs. It never lied. Is that really necessary? She stammered, backing away. We're all family. We don't have to take things this far. If you have a clear conscience, Isla said, raising the mirror, then why are you afraid to look? I'm not afraid. Meggie blustered. I just think this is a desecration of the dead. The greatest respect we can show the dead, Isla said, is to uncover the truth. She aimed the mirror at Meggie. Instantly, a silver light enveloped the hall. Images began to form in the mirror's surface. The first image, an 8-year-old Meggie, kneeling before a man in black robes. Please save me. I don't want to die in this damn orphanage. I can save you, but there is a price. The warlock's voice was hoarse. You will do something for me. I'll do anything. You will enter the Snowfang pack, earn their trust, and then retrieve the heart of the moon goddess for me. I am just an orphan. How could they possibly trust me? Don't worry. I'll make you sick. The warlock cackled. A frail, sickly orphan is the easiest to pity. The Meggie in the image nodded eagerly. What about Hazel? She'll get in my way. Don't worry about her. When the time comes, I'll make her disappear forever. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. No, that's not real. Lyra covered her mouth, her eyes filled with shock and disgust. The images continued. The second image. 3 months ago, Meggie meeting with the warlock late at night. It's time for the final step, the warlock said, producing 2 crystal vials. The red one is for Hazel. It will cause her wolf spirit to completely dissipate. The blue one is for you. It will create the illusion of near death. How long will it take? Hazel will live for 3 days at most. Your symptoms will last until she is dead. Perfect, the Meggie in the image said, taking the vials with a vicious smile. You had your whole life as a princess. Hazel, now it's my turn. The third image was even more cruel. It was the last night of Hazel's life. Meggie stood in the doorway of Hazel's room, watching her curl up in pain on the bed. How does it feel, sister? She asked with a light laugh as she walked in. The feeling of your wolf spirit fading must be agony, right? Hazel's eyes fluttered open weakly. Meggie, it was you, of course it was me, Meggie said, looking down on her. Why else do you think an orphan would receive so much love? It was all an act. Why, Hazel asked, her voice strained. Because I want everything that is yours. Maggie spat. Your family, your title, your husband, your child, they should have all been mine. Tears streamed from Hazel's eyes. Leo is just a boy. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him, Maggie sneered. He already likes me more anyway, doesn't he? The light from the mirror faded. The hall was deathly silent. Everyone stared at Maggie. Their eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief, rage, and disgust. Jaden was the first to explode. You demon! He lunged forward and wrapped his hands around Maggie's throat. You killed my daughter. You killed Hazel. Maggie choked, struggling for air. Jaden, let her go, the High Elder shouted, pulling him back. Jaden released her, and Maggie fell to the floor, coughing violently. Why? Lyra walked over, her eyes burning with hatred. Hazel was so good to you. We were all so good to you. Why would you do this? Because it should have been mine. Maggie shrieked hysterically. Why was she born a princess while I was just an orphan? Why did you love her and not me? So you killed her for it. Lyra lunged at Maggie like a madwoman. Give me back my daughter. Give me back Hazel. A few elders had to hold her back. Jaden spoke, his voice a low growl that seemed to rise from the depths of hell. By the authority of the Alpha, I hereby strip Maggie of the Snowfong name. From this day forward, you are nameless. An outcast. Exiled. Forever. No. Maggie crawled toward Edwin. Edwin, you can't let them do this to me. You love me, you said you would protect me. Edwin looked down at her, his eyes devoid of any warmth. Get out, he said coldly. Get out of my sight before I change my mind and tear you apart myself. Despair completely consumed her. Her plan had failed, her identity was exposed, and everyone had abandoned her. But she would not go down without a fight. She would not. What right do you have to judge me? She screamed, scrambling to her feet and pointing at every single person in the room. Her voice a demonic shriek. I may have killed Hazel, but I wasn't the only one. You're all just as guilty, aren't you? Edwin's POV. 2 years since Maggie's exile. Father, you're drifting again. Leo sat across from me at the meeting table, watching me with a concerned expression. At 10 years old, he could already see the pain and emptiness in my eyes. Sorry, Leo, I said, pulling myself back. What were you saying? About the coming-of-age ceremony, Leo repeated. It's next month, and I was wondering what the plans are. The coming-of-age ceremony. The most important ritual for a 10-year-old wolf cub. It marked the awakening of their wolf, and their official entry into the pack. By tradition, the ceremony should be led by the Alpha Father and the Luna Mother. But Hazel had been dead for 2 years. I'll arrange it, I said dismissively. I'll have the elders prepare what's needed. What about Mom? Leo asked suddenly. The ceremony needs the Luna's blessing, but Mom is, one of the elder she-wolves will stand in for her. I cut him off. Don't worry about it. Leo looked at my tired face, and a complex mix of emotions crossed his own. Over the past 2 years, he had come to understand a lot of things. He understood Maggie's true nature, the reason for his mother's death, and the cruel foolishness of his own past actions. The woman he had once called Mommy Maggie was the one who had murdered his real mother, and he, a 6-year-old boy, had been her accomplice. Dad, Leo began carefully, I want to go visit Mom's grave. My body went rigid. For 2 years, I had never once visited Hazel's grave. It wasn't that I didn't want to. I didn't dare. I was afraid to face that cold tombstone. Afraid to be reminded of the sins I had committed. Some other time, I said, avoiding the subject. I have things to deal with. Leo's face fell with disappointment. Ever since Hazel died, this is what I had become, avoiding any topic related to her, burying myself in work to numb the pain, and barely even looking my own son in the eye. Because every time I looked at Leo, I thought of Hazel, of the woman we had all hurt so deeply. Dad, Leo said, mustering his courage. Why won't you ever talk about Mom? Leo, don't ask these questions. But I want to know. Leo stood up, his eyes welling with tears. None of you ever talk about her. It's like she never even existed. That's enough. I slammed my hand on the table. We are not talking about Hazel ever again. Leo flinched but stood his ground stubbornly. Why not? She was my mother. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. How could I tell my son that we, his so-called family, were the ones who killed her? How could I explain why, in the last days of her life, we chose an outsider over her? Because we are all sinners, I finally admitted, my voice like shattered glass. We killed her, Leo. We don't deserve to speak her name. 3 hours later, I was in the slums of a border city. I had just left a rundown bar after finishing a business negotiation. The night was dark, the street lit only by dim yellow streetlights and the occasional drunk staggering by. Just as I was about to leave, I heard a commotion in a nearby alley. Give us the money. Please, I don't have anything left. No money? Then you can pay with your body. A group of vagrants had a thin woman cornered, their voices menacing. The woman was huddled against the wall, her tattered clothes barely covering the bruises on her body. Her hair was a tangled mess, her face caked with filth. I wasn't planning on getting involved, but in the dim light of the street lamp, I saw the woman's face. Maggie, the once beautiful and elegant girl, was now being bullied by lowlifes in a slum. I could see the backlash from the dark magic had ravaged her, stripping away her stolen powers and the beauty she had prized above all else. Her once radiant skin was now a withered, sickly gauntness. Please, just let me go, Maggie begged. I've already sold everything I have. Then sell yourself, one of the men growled, reaching for her clothes. Just then Maggie looked up and saw me standing at the mouth of the alley. Edwin. Hope ignited in her eyes. Edwin, save me. The vagrants noticed me too. Seeing my expensive clothes, they immediately became wary. Is this a friend of yours? No, I answered coldly. I don't know her. Maggie's face fell into utter despair. Edwin, please, for the sake of what we once. We never had anything. I cut her off, my voice like ice. You are nothing but a fraud and a murderer. With that, I turned to leave. Edwin. Maggie scrambled toward me. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please, for Hazel's sake, do not defile her name by speaking it, I said, stopping but not turning back. You are not worthy. I can tell you more about the warlock. Maggie cried out. Desperately. Maybe it can help you get revenge for Hazel. Hazel has been gone for 2 years. My voice was hollow, devoid of everything but pain. Revenge won't bring her back. I continued walking, my figure slowly disappearing into the night. Behind me, I could hear Maggie's wails and the cruel laughter of the vagrants. But I didn't look back. Not because I was heartless, but because I knew this was the end Maggie deserved. Just as she herself had said. She wasn't the only one who had killed Hazel. We were all guilty, and that guilt was a life sentence. Moonlight flooded the valley, illuminating a sea of silver flowers that swayed in the gentle breeze. Isla walked through the moon-petal meadow, her steps silent as she approached Hazel's final resting place. I'm here again, Hazel, she whispered to the wind. She sat down among the flowers, her voice light. The people who killed you, they all got what they deserved. The night wind whispered, and the moon-petal flowers shimmered. Lyra went mad after the truth came out. She turned your room into a shrine and spoke to your photograph every day. 6 months later, the guilt consumed her. She died apologizing to you. Jaden's hair turned white overnight. He gave up all his power and retired to the mountains. He wanders the forests every day, muttering about your childhood. That is his penance. Isla's voice turned cold. Edwin is a ghost of a man, a walking corpse. He doesn't dare sleep, because every dream is a nightmare. Starring you. His relationship with Leo is completely broken. They're like strangers. The backlash from the severed mate bond is a fate worse than death. Leo understands everything now and cries in secret. The pain has made him mature, but it has also left a permanent scar on his heart. When she spoke of Maggie, Isla smiled. But her fate is the best of all. The curse's backlash took everything. Her power, her beauty, her health. Her body is rotting away. She ended up in the slums, begging for scraps. Even Edwin wouldn't save her. She is truly nameless, scorned by all. Isla stood up and looked at the starry sky. Your revenge is complete, Hazel. They all paid the price. Not a single one escaped. You can rest in peace now. She turned to leave. I'll visit often. You will always be my best friend. Isla walked out of the valley, taking one last look back. The moonlight still bathed the sea of flowers, the silver light lending the valley an ethereal glow. A single silver butterfly fluttered gently and landed on the largest moon petal flower. The butterfly was beautiful, its wings shimmering in the moonlight. It rested there silently, as if it were guarding something. Isla knew it was Hazel's spirit. She had finally found her peace, reborn as the freest of creatures, watching over the sea of flowers that was hers and hers alone. Goodbye, Hazel. Isla disappeared into the night, and the silver butterfly remained, resting on the moon petal flower.